Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Welcome to the Green Dialogue. And before we get started with our speaker today, does anybody have any announcements or issues that they want to share briefly? We can also do this after Lauren talks, but got any burning things that you would like to share? Going once. I did want to mention, I want to thank Sam for putting us in touch with Steve, who suggested that Laura Young might speak. She's going to speak on the 29th. She's the new director of sustainability. So thanks, Sam, for that connection. And Julie Lehman is going to join us. She's the director of the garden project. We have several community gardens in Meridian. She's going to join us with a couple of other garden leaders on December 6th. And if you have suggestions for speakers, or if you would like to speak yourself, let me know. I've got a calendar and I can start filling in times.
Leroy, what director of sustainability for what?
For MSU.
Oh, awesome.
I believe that's her title. Yes, Laura Young, I believe she's a graduate of the university as well. But anyway, without any other announcements or things that people want to bring up at the moment. Okay, well, why don't we get started? Thank you, Lauren. Lauren, you've been here before and really appreciate your help with our planning process, but also just joining in conversations in the past. Lauren is the environmental sustainability planner, or one of the planners at Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. Thank you, Amanda, for unleashing her this morning and for joining us as well. I'm gonna let Lauren take it over from here, but she'll be talking about one of our most important resources in our region and some new educational tools that are available to you if you'd like to use them in your school or your business or your neighborhood.
Definitely.
Without further ado, take it away, Lauren.
So like Leroy said, my name's Lauren. My job here at Tri-County is primarily drinking water. So I help coordinate and facilitate our Groundwater Management Board, which is a volunteer-based organization of different, our conference room has gotten small. It is a regional organization of local communities and water providers, and we work together to help protect our drinking water sources. Because if you didn't know, in the Tri-County area, we rely almost exclusively on groundwater, and so what happens down below anywhere can easily impact what's going on around. So I just have a few slides that I will go through with everyone. Okay. There we go. Like I said, you rely almost exclusively on groundwater. As you guys can see in this map here, the Tri-County area is in these 3 black squares, and we focus primarily on getting our drinking water from the Saginaw Aquifer. So groundwater, a lot of the time, has been perceived as just a giant lake or a river below ground, which is honestly not true, but it does do a lot of amazing things. It's one of the least talked about parts of the water cycle, and it's very important for us to be fully aware of what it is and how it impacts our drinking water, because over 1 million households in Michigan rely exclusively on private drinking wells. So if you're in the city, you'll get it from a public supplier or municipality, but if you're living in a more rural community, or even if a water main hasn't been brought out to your house yet and you're still in an urban environment, you might still be relying on drinking water wells. And Michigan leads the nation in this, and so it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. Okay, so how does this all connect? There are multiple types of aquifers. One is a confined aquifer and the other is unconfined. As you guys can see from this image, we have water coming down as perspiration. It can enter our local waterways or it can be absorbed into the ground. Initially, it will reach our water table, which is a very fluctuating line. What happens is the water doesn't pool up into a lake, like I said. It fills every small little crevice in between soil, rock, whatnot to fill up that entire area. And the top of that filled up zone or saturated zone is going to be the water table. So that can fluctuate depending on if we get a lot of rain or we're in drought, snow melt, things like that. What happens is based on the geology of an area, you can have certain types of rock that make it harder for water to move through, and that allows for an additional layer of groundwater to form underneath, called a confined aquifer, which makes it a lot harder for it to be impacted by what's going up above ground because it has this protective layer. It takes a lot longer for that water to come back to the surface, even though it always does, like I said, part of the water cycle. So it's a constant flowing system, but it can be down there for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, up to millions, depending on how deep of an aquifer it is. The Saginaw Aquifer, which we rely on in the Tri-County area, is one of these confined aquifers. So it is amazing because it really helps to protect our drinking water sources from anything that's happening above ground, such as runoff, pesticide usage, potential spills, anything that might happen with fire that can cause explosions, things like that, that can eventually work its way down below ground during a rain, really helps to protect our drinking water source. Like I said, in our region, both sides of the areas rely exclusively on groundwater. So I'm just going to quickly touch base a little bit on urban drinking water sources. So Meridian Township gets their drinking water from Elmswa, where they have a number of municipal wells, like here, where it goes directly all the way down and takes up all that water. It is a very large well, and sometimes you'll see little well houses around in the community. These help to protect all the mechanics and everything in there to make sure that the pumps are working well and bringing the water into the system. Additionally, there are lots of different infrastructure that you guys can see, such as water towers and a lot of the fire hydrants and pump stations and things like that. What's interesting about drinking water is it's probably one of the least visual of the infrastructures we see in our urban environments. Things such as our roads, electricity, even our internet, natural gas, all those times you can see what's happening above ground. You can see when a tree knocks over a power line. You can see when the winter icing has caused some cracks in our pavement. But for the safety of all of the pipes and to prevent the freezing of the water, all that is stored below ground. So it's very hard for people to be able to see it unless something has gone wrong, like a main break, or they're trying to do some type of maintenance, which usually means they have to tear up the road and be able to access everything underneath. Luckily, a lot of the time, these projects are tied in with what needs to be done to repave roads, sidewalks, things like that. So your municipality makes a huge effort to try and coordinate a lot of these projects to make it as small of an impact on your daily lives as possible. Now, on the other side of things, we have our private drinking well. This is just part of the diagram that I have available for everyone. It's in a big banner, which I'll show a little bit more later. Private wells, this means that you guys are exclusively responsible for your drinking water. What's great about living in a city, you don't have to think about it. Yes, you have to pay your bill, but safety concerns, all of that are completely taken care of by your water provider. They release their annual consumer confidence reports every year, which lists information on where your drinking water is at compared to safety standards, what they're doing to address things if something comes up, and also how the water is meeting those standards. On private drinking wells, you are exclusively responsible, and whatever water is entering your home, you need to know and make changes if there's concerns to your health. It is recommended that you inspect your well every year. So this wellhead up here, just making sure there's no cracks, things like that. It's very common if you're not fully aware of where your well is located, for a riding lawnmower to get hit on it, especially in rural communities. I've had some individuals tell me that their grandfather has run over their wellhead with a tractor. So it's very important to make sure you know where this is, make sure it's not cracked, because that allows easily for things to get into your drinking water, because this right here is just a giant tube that leads directly to the aquifer and where your water is being brought up. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys now about what education we have developed over the past year to make available and bring some more information out there. So at GMB, we have developed these branded event kits, which communities can check out whenever they want to either have at an event such as like a farmer's market, or great example is MSU Science Festival. We're going to be at different large community events, or you can even just have them as information tables in your town hall, community center, things like that. I have 2 slides here that kind of just show basic setups. So the 2 largest purchases that we've done recently, which I'm very excited about, are these 2 banners. This first one talks about the basics of who we are as GMB, but the other is this full diagram. I showed you guys the top half of this, but it goes all the way down. This banner identifies the different parts of your well and what's going on underneath. Also identifies shallow aquifer, aquitard, the bedrock aquifer, things like that. It gives helpful hints on what to do to help protect your well. Then we have a table runner. We have a small standing banner for the table, which helps to identify who is part of GMB. This includes Meridian Township. We got your guys' logo on there. And then we have a wide variety of handouts. 2 that we've developed recently are basic information on the Groundwater Management Board, our regional priorities, as well as basics on what groundwater is and why it's important to protect it. The other is on what an actual aquifer is. So this goes into full detail about everything that's going on down there. Talks about the different types, pros and cons of them, and just has a bunch of great information. The other type of table that we have available is more of an activity-based. We have all the supplies that you guys can rent out, or even if you want me to come to be at an event to host this activity, it's called Aquifer in a Cup. What happens is we have these small clear cups where we put sand and gravel in to show the different layers below ground for kids, and then we pour water in so that they can see how an aquifer is formed from the above surface. Water drips down and pools at the bottom, but fills all the cracks. Then we have a reusable straw that goes in clear, but once it touches the water, and this needs to be very ice cold or else it doesn't work, it actually changes blue to kind of symbolize that water entering your private well and being sucked back up. I've done this activity at a few events, and we've had great success from both kids and adults really getting into it, learning about it, and it's a really great visual. And then afterwards, they're able to take a clean cup and straw back with them to try and continue to get that connection to drinking water. So we have all those things. If you want to access them, we have them on our website. It's under our resources page for My Groundwater. They're going to be at the bottom. and you can either find it in our community members drop-down menu where it says our sign out sheet, or even under our educational resources, we have it all listed there. I'm just going to quickly walk you guys through the sign out sheet so you have an idea. This currently lists all of the resources that we have available. Additionally, we have a very large groundwater flow simulator, which several communities do have, but it's a great resource. It's really visual, but it takes a lot longer, so it's harder to get a lot of engagement for community events where there's a lot of movement and things like that. It would be more beneficial for classrooms and whatnot. We have all the materials listed for the aquifer in a cup. If you just want to get branded straws and cups instead of the actual activity type of things, that's an option too. And then we have our handouts listed. Additionally, we're probably going to update this in the future once we get more materials, since we're working on a few additional handouts. So you're able to get any Tri-County branded materials or handouts if you want. Additionally, we have a partnership with DHHS where we have several of their educational materials as well for you guys to check out. And then some of the things that we're working on now are, we are developing a kind of small, it's almost like a business card. It's going to be 3 by 3 inches. It's a double-sided handout, which is focused on water quality concerns. So that's something that we've learned is a big concern for several communities, is the fact that due historically to Flint, Benton Harbor, things like that, the trust between community members and drinking water has kind of eroded a little bit. So we're trying to help increase that back up. This is going to be a little card with a QR code on the back where you can quickly scan it, and it brings you to a document that lists all of the drinking water consumer confidence reports for all the members of GMB. So it's going to be super easy access, and it's going to be updated every year to include the most recent versions because they have to put them out every year by July 1st. We are also developing a hands-on display for a private drinking well. So literally this week, I went to one of our local suppliers in Clinton County, Valley Farm Supplies, and was able to pick up several items to make a proper wellhead display. So what we are going to be doing is this is going to be able to pair with that large standing banner that showed all the different parts of the well. This will allow community members to actually put their hands on a drinking well to be able to see what it looks like. If they don't know what it looks like on their property, they can examine what a good quality cap looks like, make sure that there's no cracks, and show everything that they need to know to make sure their annual inspection runs smoothly. Additionally, the hope is that then we can talk to them as well about doing water sampling, things like that, because it is recommended to test your water quality every year, whether it's just a small sampling such as doing E. coli and nitrates, which is a great indicator for potential impacts from your septic system or something that might be happening in the area. And then every 3 to 5 years, even doing a full partial chem to really get to know what's in your drinking water. What else do we have going on? We are also working on getting some more promotional materials. So we are going to have a business card printer, which lists all the community members that are part of GMB to be in there, which will be available for checkout, as well as we are developing branded car coasters, which I'm really excited about. It's gonna have the logo and most likely the website, where it will have a great connection to hopefully your drinking water when you put it in your car coaster, and you can get that call back to, oh, GMB, if I need to know something about drinking water, I can go look there. Additionally, our entire website has a huge library of resources that we're constantly trying to grow for both urban and rural community members. And I think that's it. I feel like I keep going. So if you guys have any questions about this, it's completely free for you guys to check out. All you have to do is fill out that form. Only other thing I will share is when you do get the kit, you will get this document, which will list everything that you have in there so that you can quickly check through everything to make sure that everything's been returned at the end of the session. So we're trying to make it as painless as possible for you guys to really be able to take advantage of these materials.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lauren. That's a lot of information really quick. I'm sure people have some questions or observations, so feel free to pipe in, unmute yourself if you have any. Sarah?
I'm really curious in terms of your curriculum and your educational resources. So would you be available and willing and interested in doing like science fairs and going to the schools to be able to help them learn that kind of stuff, like to be able to take that kind of stuff? Or is that the kind of thing where you'd be interested in the teachers taking your resources and working on it that way?
Currently, we do not have any straight on curriculum for teaching in classes and things like that. Our hope is to eventually have something like that where we can really team with our local schools. I do have some resources that would make for really great school activities that we can check out to teachers because they're reusable if you clean them properly. The only issue is we don't have the lessons plan developed for them. And so I don't just want to like throw them out there and be like, hey, this is a resource, but not make it easy for them to use and make it harder for them to try and implement the activities. So once we can get that developed, hopefully in the next couple of years, because we're just trying to really build up our outreach materials. Unlike GLRC, Amanda, they have all sorts of materials readily available. I'm trying to get GMB to that point as well. So we're trying to build everything up as we can.
So it could be the kind of thing where you could go to a science fair though and show like the cups and
yeah, definitely.
Because that's what they do at the science fairs in elementary school, is just that, like that kind of stuff. So I was just curious if it was the kind of thing where I could take your information back to like Okemos. We have a parent council where we talk, representatives from each school come together monthly, where I could say, oh, here's an option for your science fair.
Yeah, so for the MSU Science Festival as well as the Potter Park Zoo, we would have a table where we do that. The activity is like maybe 5 minutes tops. But if it's something where the kids are just like rotating out and coming constantly, that can definitely work. But it's not something that would be like a full class activity.
No, that's not what the science fair is. So
then yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or? I mean, one of the questions that comes to mind is, you and Amanda have different fields, reservoirs of information. Where do you guys intersect? Or do you typically do the stormwater management and groundwater separately, or do you ever combine forces and the streams merge?
Yeah. So one great example is earlier this year, me and Amanda worked on this. Let me pull it up. So we actually developed this septic post on our website. This is a great example of how things very much merge between both surface water and groundwater. Septic systems can have a huge impact on both our groundwater and surface water sources. And so we developed this whole septic topical, which we're hoping is a go-to resource for Michiganders to really learn about what it takes to have a septic system. So it provides your basics of what a conventional system is, which is the most common type that you would find on your property. It breaks it down between both your septic tank as well as your drain field. It talks about the septic system's potential impacts to our water systems. It talks about tips and tricks for homeowners for both things that can happen inside and outside. And then it talks about what to do if your septic system fails, tips for that, information for resources, such as the Michigan Homeowner Repair and Rehabilitation Assistance Program, And then lastly, it talks about the current conversation at the state capitol about potentially instilling a statewide septic code. It just links to the House bills that are currently out there, but it does also talk a little bit about Ingham County's point of sales requirement, because they are the only county in the entire Tri-County area which actually has some type of regulation for inspection of septic systems.
Cool. Found that My Watershed's website really helpful. Teresa, thanks for joining us. Did you want to share the resource that you posted in the chat?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, MIGNIAC spent the last year working with a NOAA grant, BWET, Bay Watershed Education Training, and developed curriculum for getting into classrooms with to teach kids. You know, Amanda knows this, that TCRPC did a survey, and something in the neighborhood of 70% of area residents don't know they live in a watershed. So we have a full wraparound program that goes into schools from grades 6 and up. I think there are some things that could be adapted to lower grades, but and it includes a lot of outdoor education. And through the course of that, this was a train the trainer grant. So we were actually training teachers to be able to present these materials to their classrooms. But we were also taking them out to, for instance, Lake Lansing, and doing some observations out there and that sort of thing. So in the course of that, we ran across Ellen Bookestein at Eagle, who handles their MEEKS program. And so the link that I've shared in the chat is what they have for groundwater. They also have watershed information. They have air quality information. So if you go to look, if you just look up MEEKS, MEECS, you'll see a variety of resources. Some of them housed on PBS. Some of them, what was it? It doesn't matter. When you go there, you'll see it. So anyway, they've got a ton of material out there related to environmental education. Might be helpful. I I heard somebody ask about are you getting into classrooms, and there are some really valuable resources out there in the MEEKS library.
Sounds like another topic for a future green dialogue. Maybe we can.
I'm sure Ellen would love to present what she's been doing.
Great.
Can you put her info or her name in there so that I have the contact? I want to be able to give it to our assistant superintendent of curriculum. Thank you.
Question?
Yes, Roberta.
Good morning. This is Roberta. I have a couple of questions probably for Lauren. I'm curious, what profession would be the profession that would inspect a well or inspect a septic tank? I have a property that's on a septic system, and I've owned it for 5 years, and I don't know where the wellhead is, and I have never
I got
had
you. No worries. I got you. So that link that Amanda shared earlier takes you directly to our resources page. And what we have directly at the top here, right under, hold on.
Okay, and
You get to the
excuse me, I'm going to
resources
interrupt you a second. Okay. I'm blind and I cannot see your page.
Okay.
I
I
can't see
will-
what you're showing on, but what is your website?
The website is going to be mitcrpc.org/mi groundwater-resources. And then I'll just talk you through the format of it so you have an idea of where it is on the page for future reference. So
Right.
on our resources page, we have a first section that says learn more about groundwater. This includes several links to basic information like definitions, things like that, that tell you what that is. Then it gets into a section that says well and septic maintenance. And below that is a display, a diagram of distances for different potential contamination sources that you should keep away from your well. So like your septic tank should be 50 feet away, or your manure stack should be 250 feet away. Directly below that are 4 rectangles. This is, these are hover boxes that show a link once the cursor is over them. The first 2 are for drinking water. The first is water quality testing. This takes you directly to the Eagle website for information on how to test your well. The second takes you to a list of certified providers from the state for drinking water inspection. And then the other 2 are septic. The first is a septic system inspection, and the second is septic system pumping. The first link takes you to a resource that helps you keep track of where your septic system is, information on who you want to contact for it, and a record keeping thing. The last link, which is under that septic system pumping, takes you to a website, and this is called septic.com. And they have a whole list of septic service providers. You can categorize it based off of the state, and then you can bring it down to either county or community if it's large enough. So it will provide you with a list of septic service providers who can come out to inspect your tank, even pump it if needed, give you additional information, look at your drain field, things like that. So this last resource, which is a septic.com, would be the place that I would direct you to access a list, to find a provider to help.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
How does that play in for what you're talking about and what the county knows and what's in the county records? I have a piece of property that the county records show that there's multiple wells on an acre of property, and yet the county comes out and they can't even find it. So is that the kind of thing where they're like the septic.com and those people are going to be better at being able to, like, she even brought out, I don't know what the term, but like the poker
Divining,
thing,
yeah.
the poker. And so, I mean, is it the more you go the route of the septic.com, you go that route of trying to get them to help you because the county can't? Like, I
To
don't,
try and find your septic tank or your well.
all of it.
So, was the county person from the health department?
They were just from the department that had the records, so I don't know.
Okay, so
It's
the
Clinton
best-
County, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
So the best line of action would be first to contact Mid-Michigan Health District Health Department. So they're the ones for Clinton County. Because Eagle helps a lot of the time with, they're in charge of what's required for drinking water safety for the public sector. Health Department is there to help with private drinking wells. So sometimes it can be really hard to find it. The chairperson of my technical advisory council, she has known that she's had a well on her property for years and has not been able to find it. And she's been very much in the field and knows what to look for. And she's only just found it now. And it's been probably 10 years of her looking. It just really depends on whether or not you have the time to sit down and like really try and find it. So talking with your local health department is the great first start. Finding the records, which seems like you do, can give you a general idea of where it might be located on the property. And then they can potentially help find it with certain things like divining rods, where it helps like pick up a lot. I forget the whole process of how it works, but that's how my chairperson found hers. But it can take a while if it's really hidden. Hers was actually buried a couple feet under the ground, just due to changes in the landscape over time and the previous homeowner not taking good care of like making sure that it's fully exposed, things like that. So that would probably be the best step, is to really discuss the best options with your local health department about who we can bring in to really try and find this source. As for the septic system, they are also a great resource for helping it. I do not believe septic tanks are as documented fully as wells, because each well that is drilled is required to have an actual well log, which is recorded in well logic. But septic tanks, a lot of the time there's it has a bit more of a specific requirement for how they can be installed, so that like narrows your searching zone. Your drain field needs to be fully exposed without like any trees or things on it. So if you have a large grassy space in your yard without anything on it, that's most likely where your drain field might be, and then you can kind of come in closer to your house. Additionally, you can look for where the out pipe is in your house. That will probably go down. You can like see where it is in your basement, most likely, where all the sewage goes, and then figure out, okay, what side of the house is this on? And that's kind of the direction of where your septic tank would be.
What did you say, Mid-Michigan Health?
Yeah, MMDHD. So Mid-Michigan District Health Department. They
Okay,
cover
okay.
Clinton County as well as 2 other counties north and west of them.
Great, thank you.
Yep. And we do have links to their website on that resources page. It is under, ooh, they're somewhere. They're on there somewhere. I
That's fine,
swear.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Lauren? Thank you so much for joining us, Lauren. Welcome to stick
Yeah.
around. We still have about 15 minutes or so if folks have other things they'd like to talk about. Or if you think of anything else you'd like to add. Same with Teresa or Amanda or anybody else. It was great to have the general overview, because I think for me that was nice to get a reminder of how it fits together, what it looks like, and the visuals were great.
I have a question in terms of the municipal well. Is the municipal well underneath the water tower?
No, it is not. Let me actually, I gotta.
So like when you're bringing up the water, it can be in some other place, and then you have to get it to the water tower.
The water tower is actually not a requirement
Oh, okay.
for you to get drinking water. It's just a really great infrastructure system for communities to have to, one, kind of save a little money on energy, because what it does is to make sure things are running smoothly in your system, the water has to be constantly moving. So the elevation of your water tower helps to use gravity to push the water through the system. So it kind of helps to do that. That's why a lot of the time it'll also be somewhere higher up to really push the water through, to just take advantage of what gravity gives us. And then 2, it is an additional source for emergency purposes. So a great example is several months ago, Elmswood had a main break. And so the water tower helped to keep pressure going and provide that drinking water to go through while they were trying to deal with everything else. But let me bring
Thank you.
up, I have an image here, if I can find it. Here we go. Come on. Open up. There we go. So it's a completely different structure from what you would see from a water tower. The water tower is connected to the pipes that are already in the ground to transport drinking water throughout your community. The municipal well is actually a direct line to the aquifer. So access your drinking water so our groundwater, and bring it up and enter it into the system. This is the raw water. So this is pre-treated, everything else. The water towers are post-treatment, so they already have your drinking water that has been treated, meets drinking water safety standards, and can be directly drinked. This needs to go through the system to meet our safety requirements. And a lot of time you will see some type of housing to kind of just protect all the mechanics that are up there. For me, a great example to be able to see them is honestly down Jolly in the whole agricultural district for MSU. You can see some of those smaller water towers when you drive down to just get an idea of what that kind of infrastructure looks like.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And you will also actually see a bunch of signs as well that are near them that say you're entering a wellhead protection area, which is a plan drinking water providers can implement to help address technical and outreach efforts to protect our drinking water sources.
You remind me that when you're talking about the hidden infrastructure, that a lot of the work and the expense that the township money that we spend on energy pumping and things like that is invisible. And we do a lot of maintenance of not just the water supply system and the pumps, but also the sewage pumps in the township. So those are some of the unsung heroes at the township, just keeping those systems running smoothly. And you often don't hear about it unless something goes wrong. So next time you see a truck with Meridian logo, just wave and blow them a kiss.
I will say one thing. We're not muted. We are in the same conference room, so I was getting a little bit of feedback. What's great, what's lucky for Amanda is stormwater infrastructure is very visual, especially with your storm drains, as well as now a lot more installation of green infrastructure, which helps to kind of slow down a lot of that runoff and things like that. But what's also great about it is that it then allows for additional recharge opportunities to let that surface water seep further into the ground and enter our aquifers and allow that to fill back up to make it a bit more of a reusable resource. Because though technically water is a reusable resource, if it's not managed properly, you can get areas where a well can run dry because it's being pumped quicker than it can refill, and then that can cause a lot of issues. So any opportunity that there is to help recharge our local groundwater resources is always a big win. So that again is an area where things can cross over between both surface and groundwater education.
I thought of another example as well. Tri-County and specifically Lauren has been distributing and developing a road salt survey that the member communities within Clinton, Eaton, and Ingham counties are participating because chlorine from road salt is affecting both groundwater. It can contaminate it as well as surface waters. So anything that can contaminate both those things is something that Lauren and I are going to be working on together, and we'll be happy to share the results of that survey, although they will be
Potentially
anonymous.
we'll see how things go, because it is primarily to help educate our communities on how they're using road salt, provide best management practices. And it is a touchy subject, especially with no huge regulations in place with the Eagle. So we're trying to respect communities' wishes while also trying to get as much information out there. So like Amanda said, it might be a bit more general focus, saying, hey, this is what the entire region does, rather than like specific, hey, this is what Meridian Township does, or this is what Delta does. So just trying to be a bit more anonymous on the sides of things.
But Meridian Township planners did participate in that, so we appreciate that.
We threatened to cut off their drinking water if they didn't. Oh, Sam or Kim?
Got a question about the impact of water bottling companies like I don't know if it's still Nestle that has the plant over on the east side of the state, but how does that affect the aquifer?
So it does. Just that's the reality of any well that enters our system. It does impact our groundwater resources, but what's important to acknowledge is that before any company, whether it is like something like Nestle, which is specifically just trying to bring up that water for drinking water purposes, or it's a industry trying to bring it up to like help cool some of their infrastructure, or it's a local community that wants to install new wells, any large water user is required to go through a very large permitting process that also includes information on how much water they would take each year from the aquifer to be put within the state's water withdrawal assessment tool, which identifies like how that would impact the other well users around, as well as surface water and things like that. Additionally, it also is one of the tools that we use in the state to help regulate how much water is being taken from the general Great Lakes Basin, since we are under regulation of how much can be taken to meet our agreements with Canada to protect the water that's there. And so groundwater is part of that international agreement. And so it is heavily regulated to make sure that what is being taken out is not as large of an impact, where it can then cause drastic impacts to the rest of the system.
Sam? Oh, you gotta unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself.
It was going back and forth between mute too many times there. Sorry about that. So Lauren, enjoyed your presentation, and a couple questions come to mind that are pretty small, but the first image you showed of the Saginaw aquifer kind of looked like a galaxy and had like different colors in it. And I'm just curious if there was any explanation for the different colorations in that image. And then secondly, I got one more just I'll toss out there. It's minor, but with the wellheads, protection of those guys, a lot of people are using these plastic rocks to put over the top. And just curious about if that's a good idea or if that's a problem maker or whatever, but it's just it could be just an opinion of your opinion, but
Yeah, definitely. So the first one, it honestly is just kind of like a key. So if you looked closely, there were 3 colors. It was purple, pink, and green, and it just identifies the different aquifers that are on that map. And so it just specifically pulls out those 3 aquifers that are there. You can find other maps that are a lot larger that cover a wide range of things, because additionally, there's multiple layers to aquifers. So in Tri-County area, you have the Saginaw aquifer, which is the bedrock aquifer where we pull all of our stuff from, but there's also a glacial till aquifer up here, which is shallow, and definitely sways up and down with flooding, drought, things like that. And we also have kind of like a middle one, which is like a red sandstone aquifer. And so it's just a matter of what aquifers are being mapped on that specific one. We are trying this year to get a better visual map that we can make a bit more readily available for our specific aquifers in our region. We'll see how that goes. It has been known that Michigan is not as much keeping up with the other Great Lakes states on their geology and groundwater modeling, documentation, research, things like that. But we're making an effort. As for the rocks, a lot of the time that's honestly just aesthetic purposes. It can help to protect the wellhead, especially if you're mowing a lot, especially on a rider. You don't have to worry about it getting hit as much. It's honestly just people don't want to have a pipe sticking out of their ground, so they'd rather have a fake rock on it, which has no impact to it other than you just don't see it as much.
Yeah. Is it,
what
but
was
just
actually
from a ventilation, it doesn't this thing doesn't need to be vented or anything like
no,
that?
not at all.
That's good. That's what I was curious about. That's good.
Yeah, what's
'Cause I
actually
have a
really
plastic
funny
rock, yeah.
is a previous homeowner might have put that rock on there and never documented it, and so a new homeowner doesn't know where their well is, and that's happened a lot. So we are doing a regional groundwater survey as we can, depending on funding purposes, and this helps to sample several wells within a township. And a lot of the time we've had some homeowners that had no idea where their well was, and then our project lead would go out, take the plastic rock off and be like, oh my god, I didn't know that was fake, I thought it was just a rock sitting on my property the whole time. So yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Yep.
And I'll investigate that image. I couldn't see the key on my screen, but
The one
probably
that we have doesn't specifically have it all there. Let me pull it back up.
there's probably someplace online where I could find that. Yeah, see, one of the reason that sparked my question is this purple ring on the outside. I'm out there in that purple ring, and I'm just curious if my well has any different issues than let's say the pinker stuff on the middle, but just if there's a difference. Yeah, we got the
And
Marshall Aquifer.
honestly, there is opportunities to have difference in water quality type doors away from you. So what's really unique about Michigan is the state had a lot of unique geology. Prehistorically, glaciers came in and really just played with it and kind of just threw everything as a grab, moving down from the Canadian section of North America and pushed it all with it as it was coming down. And as it retreated, it just left a bunch of stuff everywhere. So we actually recently did a special projects sampling in Watertown Township, where we sampled several wells surrounding the Granger landfill out there, because when we did the original sampling for the township, we noticed 1 or 2 homes that had high arsenic in that area. And so we were worried that maybe there was something happening with the landfill. After our sampling, we found there was a home with really high arsenic, way above what was the safe drinking water standards recommendations from the state. Just like 3 houses away, completely normal arsenic, no concerns, way below the safety standards. So it's very temperamental of what you can find below ground. Same in Williamston, they have a very unique geology over there compared to what we see here in Lansing. So their water quality is a bit different from what we see here as well. So my best recommendation would be talk to your local health department, because they are regularly informed about like what the current trends are, what we've seen from private drinking wells, and they can be like, hey, in your area, we know that these are some things that are very common. We would recommend for you to sample those additionally to just general chemistry and whatnot, just because this is something that's common in your area.
Great. Yeah, so it's nothing to do whether you're in the pink zone or the purple zone. It's just all really local. That's good.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Yep. And if you look at a state geology map, you will see that a lot of the time that ring is there as well, because it follows very much with the geology of things, how aquifers form. So.
Oh, one last thing I'll just mention for people that are looking for their septic tank. In the springtime, as the snow melts, the first place that turns with no snow, that's generally where the septic tank is, because you get a little heat coming out of there.
Yeah, the deer like to bed down on that spot in my yard.
Are there some similar variations in wells, like municipal wells, or is that more for wells that aren't as deep?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Well, say East Lansing, for example, might have 20 municipal wells feeding the water supply system. Do you see that variation between those wells as well?
You can. So it really depends on how far out the well field is. So MSU, obviously, they have a very limited space for where they can have their wells. It's just kind of like a rectangle. And so a lot of the time it's pretty similar along those lines. But I know Elmswood just recently bought a couple of wells, I think around Bath from BWL. So just because of the distance, there could be a little bit of variation in what's going on there. I know one of the biggest things that is usually an indicator of how often municipality will use a well more than others, because sometimes they'll just have them there for emergency purposes or backup, things like that, is hardness. Michigan has really hard water. And so just to try and save costs on treatment, hardness does nothing to safety of your drinking water, but it's an aesthetic thing that homeowners don't like to have. So it's something that they have to account for in their treatment process. And so it helps to save them money in the long run to try and go with wells that are a bit softer in water quality. And so that's a very easy example of sometimes some wells will not be as great as others.
Thank you. Any other parting comments related or not to Lauren's thorough talk? Thank you.
I'm curious if water tastes different from one place to the next because of the aquifer or because of how it's treated. Like we went out to Cody, Wyoming, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest tasting water ever. And I was just curious if that
everything is different. So I grew up in Chicago. That was primarily from lake water. I went to Marquette for my undergrad. That was from lake water too. I went to Minneapolis for my graduate degree. That was river water. Here, aquifer water for groundwater. Everything is heavily influenced by the environment. You can quickly taste differences. It depends on whether or not the facility softens their water. Many homeowners will get a softening system for their system. Some don't even. And so you can really taste that hardness sometimes. And then again, it really depends on certain aspects of what the geology is, what's happening above ground. It's very, very influential about the environment, which is why it's important that anything happens above ground can impact below ground. So we have to keep aware of those things.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and hope you have a great
I've
week.
got one more thing.
Oh yeah.
I am hopeful on Monday, Meridian Township along with Williamstown Township and the city of Williamston put in an application for a maintenance grant for the Red Cedar River, which is really key to clearing some serious log jams that we've just been unable to do with volunteer labor and even hiring some people. There's just a lot that needs to be done, and it hasn't been navigable for really since I've been in the area. Just because of storms and the beautiful number of trees that are in Meridian Township specifically. So that's coming up before the Parks Commission on Monday. And if you want to be there and support, the meeting's at 5:30. But I really hope that they do get that grant. And good job to all those communities for submitting it in the first place.
On a Red Cedar River related note, this Saturday from 11 to 3, they're doing a Red Cedar River cleanup event, and it's going to be at the Delta Sigma Phi fraternity on Grand River Ave in East Lansing. And they're going to have fly fishing instruction, canoe kayaks, magnet fishing demonstrations, and also opportunities to go out and clean up sections of the river as well. And it's, I believe the township is taking part in it. Emma's going to be there. And quite a few other groups are also involved. It's Trout Unlimited and the City of East Lansing Rotary and just a bunch of other things are going to be there as well.
Thanks, Bruce. Are you going then?
Probably will. Yep.
Maybe you can share some pictures next week. Again, I encourage you, if you have got a topic that you'd like to share in 15 minutes or so at a future dialogue, let me know. We're trying to have these recordings available as well as a kind of a podcast. We have a Peter Carrington's excellent presentation available on the Meridian YouTube channel. And I will share the links with you as well in a future email, but hope to see you all next week. Thanks again for joining us.